Well, hopefully we're streaming. I really have no idea, to be quite honest. So, I guess it doesn't really matter either way. I just want to get my, um, I just kind of want to record this to get my own thoughts in order. So, today, we're going to be doing the usual, going through and picking out a watch list. I think this is going to be a relatively fast one. But before we get started, I do actually just want to give my overall thoughts on things and just kind of my outlook. But before I do, two disclaimers. First of all, I'm not a professional, obviously. I've only been doing this for a little while. And number two, this is not financial advice. Don't copy what I do. I'm just showing you what I do, and I'm trying to learn just as everyone else is. So, before we get started going through the stocks, I do want to give my overall thoughts. And today, despite being a pretty good day overall for the market, it was a very frustrating day for me, myself, personally, because a lot of stocks I've been watching for a while and wanted to get in on blasted off and really showed themselves as leaders, but I was not able to get in on any of them. And that is a very frustrating feeling. It's probably the worst feeling that I can have as a trader personally. I mean, some days you get kind of shell-shocked. I remember I used to have bad down days, and that was kind of shell-shocking. But I just feel like the feeling of missing out, the FOMO, the feeling of missing out, is actually maybe sometimes worse than actually just losing on a trade, as long as the trade wasn't completely stupid. So, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit down about things after this, but I think there's ways to get into these things, and I think that's what I'm going to do, is try to focus on the best stocks regardless of where they are. That doesn't mean I'm going to rush in, but I do just want to kind of run down on these things, skip around a little bit. So APP and Hood both got the announcement they're going to get added to the S&P, and I don't really understand why that makes stocks pop. I would look it up on Copilot if I had that up, but I don't. But for some reason, it really does make these stocks pop. It happened on high volume, and this was pretty much just a classic base breakout. And it's tough because you're waiting for it to happen, and then it gaps up, 9%. Same thing with Hood. We wanted to take this off of a pullback to the 50, and looking at it now, this probably wouldn't have been the worst place to enter if you had got it right at the beginning of the day. The thing is, it raced up very quickly. Now with this one, at least you're not in the all-time highs yet, so this was literally a perfect candle in that it pretty much closed right at highs. So that would suggest more follow-on strength, but I do think you might get another shot at this one before it breaks out into all-time highs. Now A-Lab did not gap up, but this one, it went so fast, I think it did 7% in the first minute. So basically, if you weren't completely locked in on this one, if you didn't have a buy stop in, then you missed it. And that's really tough when you see something day after day, you know it's a great stock, you're expecting it to break out, but you can do all the research in the world, you can spend all the hours and time watching something, but at the end of the day, sometimes a stock is only actionable for a minute or two, and that's really all the time you have to execute. And that's what makes the stock market a little bit frustrating in my opinion. But that being said, it's not over. If this thing goes on to double, like it looks like it kind of wants to do, then what's the first 13%? It's not that big of a deal. But we do have to find a way into these things that's not completely, that's not just a risky maneuver. So I'll give some thoughts on that before I get into the watch list. And I think the best way to get into these stocks that have already broken out is definitely the hourly chart. You can see this one starting to curl over a little bit. When you have a stock that's behaving this strong, I do think that the short-term hourly moving averages will be in play. I do think that you can play it off of those like you were able to do back here, for example. And really the goal here is to buy the stock in a spot where if it was to go down anymore, you would know that something is wrong. So you don't want to buy it in a spot where it could normally pull back and stop you out that way, or you would have to take on a larger stop loss in order to know that you're wrong. So for example, if I bought it right here and I put on a 2% stop loss, well, if it pulls back to here, that's very normal, and my stop loss would still be broken during normal action, so that's not something that we want. I could say, okay, maybe if it pulls back to here, that's more abnormal, but I'm taking a huge risk if I'm putting my stop loss that low. So we want to wait for it to pull back into the moving averages, and okay, if it was to go for any lower from this point, then something's wrong. And at that point, I think you can probably take a shot on it, and you can make your risk somewhat tight. So that's what I'm going for with these, because after all, really what is our goal with stocks? It's to buy them in a spot where you can put a stop loss in, and the stock is not going to come back down to that stop loss. That's really the goal here. So I think that the hourly chart is going to be the best way to look at these. That doesn't mean you should be tunnel vision on just these few stocks that broke out. I'm sure there's probably more that are going to follow, but I do think that these are going to definitely be the leaders. So I'm going to be paying close attention to these. So I'm going to be quite quick with the rest of my selection process. We're going to clear this list out. And let's go through the 100 most liquid stocks in the market to pick the top 25 that we want to take a look at getting in on. So Nvidia, despite some of the strength in the AI peripherals area, this one did not have a great day, kind of rejecting back down, but we do want to keep an eye on it. Tesla still range bound, just getting turned away at these highs but not violating the low of this gap, so definitely in play to turn back up. Let me go ahead and add that one. Apple, moving a little slow. Palantir, still just stuck on the 50, not really able to get any kind of bounce. This one, I'm not too optimistic about this one. That being said, if it was going to crack, you would think it would have cracked a little while ago. So really just range bound, a lot of indecision right now, and we'll see what happens. Amazon, this looks quite good. It did have a bit of a fake out today, but this one looks like it wants to go higher. AMD cracking the 50, not looking too good there. Meta, a bit of a fake out. I'll add it in. It looks like Megacap Tech did kind of have some reversals, so that could be signaling maybe a little bit of a slowdown, a little bit of a pullback here. I do just want to look at this hourly chart. You know, part of me is tempted. I did for a while just try to find like the smoothest moving stocks and just ride those. Part of me is tempted to kind of try that approach with, you know, a Google or something and really expand out of the liquid stocks to find stocks that move like that. You can find them sometimes, but I don't think that I'm going to be switching up my tactics like that. Sometimes the day will make you question what you're doing, but I think we should try and stick to the game plan and, you know, keep doing what we're doing. But this one, it does appear to be riding this 10-hour line, but, you know, these hourly moving averages, you can take them with a grain of salt because they're not providing as much support as a daily. This one, I mean, we'll keep an eye on it. Broadcom, kind of stuck in this range. Yep, Robinhood, we talked about this one. Bitcoin theme week, Netflix taking a nice bounce here. This one, might be able to buy it if you want something a little slower. Yeah, this one just getting kind of tight after its move up. We want to see this 50 line, this 50-hour line turn up, which it's starting to, but we want to kind of see this come in, and then once this thing's turned up, we can probably take a shot on this one if you so wish. This one actually looks really good from a short-term perspective. Now, from a long-term perspective, it's a little sketchy. But this one does look pretty decent. It's getting very tight here. It's not really riding a moving averages, which is what I don't even know how to say his name. Kolamagi says this probably wouldn't have enough of a move up for him to pick, but I mean that's just this kind of look reminds me of the charts that he trades, but it doesn't. This is a completely different context that we're seeing it in right now. So I don't think I'm going to take a shot on an 85 relative strength stock, but it does look pretty decent. And then Apple Oven, yep, same drill for that one. Oracle, it's all about earnings tomorrow night. Micron, this one, now if I want to get into something like an A-Lab, and I'm already in something like an A-Net, then Micron probably isn't going to be the move, but it is starting to look like it wants to go higher on this hourly chart there. Maybe just a small little bounce, and you could potentially get in on this one. It is quite extended from the 10 though, so CoreWeave showing some signs of life, but very far away from a viable stock. Baba, really nice gap up. This one looks like it definitely wants to lead. I did try out its AI platform. Unfortunately, the app was completely in Chinese, but it does seem to be a pretty decent platform. Probably nothing special, I would say, but definitely can play with the big boys, it does look like. So this one, I do want to see what happens, but it's probably a little too gappy for me. And SoFi continues its messy run higher, but a run higher is a run higher nonetheless. Reddit, some ugly action, rejecting up here. You probably need to see this one, kind of build some sort of like tightness, a little bit of a flag you could say, before this one looks ready to go higher. Yeah, you can see just kind of got rejected off those highs and is coming back down. I mean, you could try to bounce it off the 50-hour line, but that's a pretty ugly day, so we'll see. Uber bouncing at the 50. GV not falling apart yet, but this one I'm very skeptical about right now. Spotify working its way up. It looks like these subscription type stocks are back in play. This one, I almost did consider buying it today when it was kind of in this tight spot here, and it really didn't get that far above it, so it's still a possibility for me, I think. Boeing coming down to its 50, or rather its 50 is catching up to it. Snowflake probably needs to get a little bit tighter. It looked like it wanted to maybe bounce, but it got shoved back down. That's just kind of the nature of the beast when you have a lot of volatility going on. So yeah, it did break through its 50-hour line, which isn't a great look. So this one, I'm not sure if this is going to be a gap and crap or if we're going to stabilize and move higher, but I will probably keep an eye on it. I don't mess around with this stock. It does look very shortable though. And Citigroup just continues to have these little shakeouts up here. This might be a nice smooth mover just to kind of give me a confidence boost, which kind of seems like what I need right now. And then Arista, this is the only stock that I own, and I was very disappointed by this one today. It really looked good down here. It kind of broke off, and it hasn't violated that gap yet. It hasn't fallen apart yet, but it's just very disappointing when a lot of its contemporary stocks like A-Lab and what else was doing well today? Maybe it was just A-Lab, but when you see a brother or sister stock like A-Lab cruising higher, you kind of expected to scroll down and maybe see some strength in this one, but it just wasn't having it today, so very disappointed by this buy. But, it's not over yet. Caterpillar looking pretty good and tight coming into the 50. brackets for me. Wow. And then Roblox, just kind of chopping around in here. Definitely a lot of overhead to get through with just this one single bar. A lamb, there was some strength in this semi-name. Mongo database still just kind of going sideways in this range here. You know, it looks like it's kind of getting to a make or break spot, but things can go sideways longer than you would expect them to. And this one, just on a long-term basis, is not really in a position that I would want to buy it in. But I will keep an eye. GE Aerospace, chopping around near highs. Very similar to Boeing. Shopify, this one doesn't look bad, but I was a little bit disappointed with this one during the day. For one that I've kind of raved about the setup, which still does look alright. You know, when you see things cruising upwards at a very high rate, and then you see this one just kind of moving sideways, it is a little bit disappointing, but you know, this still looks pretty good here. So maybe breaking this high here, you can see there's a small downside gap here. This one's kind of weird because really you've just had downside gaps in it, but it's recovered nicely enough. So yeah, I think it's still in play, but maybe over, you know, this level or something, I don't know. And yep, there's A-Lab. You know, that big green candle sticking out like a middle finger to me. You know, making fun of me that I didn't get in on it. And then Carvana chopping around near highs, which seems to be a theme in the market right now. Still just kind of sitting at the edge of this huge base. Oklo starting to tighten up as it comes down towards this 50-day line. This one, even its hourly chart is quite choppy though. Like, what can you really make of this? Guess you could like buy it here or something like that. But this one, it doesn't even like trend all that nicely. It has some big undercuts. It's not the kind of stock that I'm good at holding, for one. But I will probably keep an eye on it just because it's a leader. And CyberArk, that's just a derivative of PanW. Celestica, I tried this for like half a second just because I saw it gapped above this close here, but just looking at the daily, it was kind of an ill-advised buy there when you're so extended after this huge run. You know, it kind of has a similar look to A-Lab where you ran up the side of this base and then you gapped up on earnings, then you kind of formed this little, you know, choppy handle or whatever you want to consider it as. Then it just kind of gapped up for no reason. So very similar to A-Lab, but this is a much more mature stock that's been running for a lot longer. So it's only a $28 billion company though. So we'll keep our eye on it, but this is far from viable, and I really need to not be even attempting things when they're this extended, because that's just a waste of time. You know, more than money, it's just an opportunity cost. And then Rocket Lab making a rally back upwards, but I'm very skeptical until it can get through this high right here. Yeah, the rally's been on weaker volume than the sell-off was. Well, I'll take a look and I'll check it out. I think we're getting to the end here. C Limited. This one not really moving in any kind of like recognizable way. So it's kind of forming the right side of a base here. Not a whole lot to say with this one. It's strong, certainly, but I'm not really sure if this is viable coming into highs here. Kind of looks like it might just roll over like it did here. I might just keep an eye on it for fun. And Dash tried to come up off the 50 but got rejected, showing a little more weakness than Netflix and Spotify, I would say, but still looking pretty good overall. And we're back to NVIDIA, so that would be all 100 of the stocks. Let's go ahead and see. I hope I'm not coming down with a cold, because that would be really annoying. So we got a knock 6 off of here. That's pretty daunting. Now I don't see myself buying this one because it's a foreign stock. And this one I don't even need to tempt myself. Mongo. So we need to knock off 4 more. So this one really hasn't been moving very much at all. Yeah, I think there's better things than Uber, so I'll take that off. We can take off Baba since I'll probably just end up watching it run up without me. 2 more stocks. No, Google is still too extended to buy. And last but not least, let's take off. Let's take off Netflix just because the price is too big. Like I can't. Like I like my position size to basically be a quarter of my total account value, and it's hard to get that precise when the stock is $1,200, and I don't have a huge account, so let's take this one off. Okay, so that should be down to 25. That's the watch list there. Thanks guys for watching and bearing with me tonight. Hopefully we can feel a bit better about ourselves moving through this week. But anyway, I'm going to let this run for a few seconds so it doesn't cut off early. But if you watched, I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time, so thank you.